Hello all. It is a blustery, gray, and yucky day today. Coming at you with another video. Got my wine here because I'm off the clock. And I have been thinking up an idea for a video to make. I don't know about the rest of you, but I have been hit with various feelings this quarantine, which has led me to try to find ways to entertain myself and stop my near constant sense of panic and distress. So thinking about that, maybe kind of think about maybe matching some books to each particular feeling that I've been dealing with anyway. So I figured that maybe I could recommend some books based upon maybe how you're currently feeling. See if those help maybe at all. So here we go. First up, I know the main complaint everyone seems to be having is total boredom. While I usually am someone who's okay with staying home, I know I personally have been bored a lot despite having many various projects and things to watch and stuff to read. So here are a couple of suggestions to beat that boredom. First up, I would recommend the Dirk Pitt series by Clive Cussler. Dirk Pitt is basically like a combination of Indiana Jones and James Bond in a sense. He works for the National Underwater and Marine Agency, which now is a real entity that looks for shipwrecks and whatnot, but at the time Clive Cussler had just invented it for Dirk Pitt to be a part of. Dirk Pitt is, I believe, the operations supervisor, manager, person. Anyway, he is basically an underwater archaeologist in a sense, but he also gets into a ton of scrapes and mishaps. This one is my favorite out of the series. It is Sahara. There was a movie made off of it a few years ago. It was alright. And basically, Dirk Pitt in this one thwarts an assassination attempt on a UN scientist, and they are racing to save the world from environmental disaster. They find some interesting old wrecks and whatnot, and there's some history and stuff tied in. It's really cool. So if you're bored and you want something action-packed, I would definitely recommend his novels, especially this one. Next up, if you don't mind reading for maybe a younger crowd, I would definitely suggest the Alex Rider series by Anthony Horowitz. This is the first novel, Stormbreaker. I don't know how popular the movie was a few years ago. I enjoyed it, but this is about a teenage boy whose uncle is mysteriously killed, and he ends up finding out that his uncle was assassinated because he was a top secret British spy. And now that agency wants to enlist Alex to be a international teen spy for them. There are several books in the series. It is really action-packed, and also a lot of fun. It's like James Bond light, I guess, for like middle grade, but it's a very, very enjoyable book series. This is really fun. And And then the next book that I would recommend would be Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. It is extremely action-packed, keeps you guessing, really fills the void, I guess, if you want to experience something exciting. I have not read the other books in this series yet, but the first one is amazing. So, next, if you are feeling a little cabin fevery, you're tired of being stuck inside, you are just completely over it, I would suggest, if it's a case of you can't go outside because there's not enough room to go outside without being among people, or you can't go outside because you are currently experiencing yucky weather like we are over here, I would suggest the next several books. First off, if you're stuck inside, why not read about people that were also stuck inside and probably having a more terrifying time than you were? Such as The Shining by Stephen King. This is literally about a family that gets trapped inside due to weather, though, and scary shit happens. I could also suggest Misery by Stephen King, which is about an author who has an unfortunate car accident and is rescued by a fanatic fan of his who makes his ever loving, English, oh my god, makes his life a living hell. There we go. So again, two scary novels about being kind of trapped inside, to just, make you think, thank God I'm not at least dealing with that. Also, if you just want to kind of scare your pants off in general or have a good read, I would also suggest Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King, or the entire trilogy, because it is very, 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 very well written. So yes. If you don't want to scare yourself and you just want to think about getting away into places far away from the sad four walls of your house, I would suggest, first of all, A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. This is chronicling his journey on the Appalachian Trail and the mishaps that ensue. There is a lot of discussion about the environmental impact that we have on nature, and on trying to preserve these trails and national parks in general, which is a very important read, but it also has some crazy shenanigans in it. Personally, I love hiking, but as much as this book made me want to hike the Appalachian Trail, it also made me most definitely not want to hike the Appalachian Trail. So, it's an escape anyways. And if you just want to get away in general, I would suggest reading travel guides. Do you have any travel guides? Do you have any way of looking at them online at all? I have one I picked up at the thrift store a couple of years ago. It's a travel guide for London. I've never been to London. I would really love to go. Anything like this in this particular series, the Eyewitness Travel Guides, is very informative. It has a lot of great pictures and history and whatnot of all these different places that you could possibly go. It's a very interesting guide. I would also suggest any books by Rick Steves. He is awesome and very informative. And if you want something else to watch that's like a little bit of travel escapism, I would suggest going to his website, because all of his videos for all of his travels are right on there. You can binge watch all of them, which is what I have been doing for the past week and a half. So let's see. Also, if you want to learn more about places around you, or you just want some interesting journeys, I can suggest books in various random places, but the one that most comes to mind, for me at least, is Off the Leash, Subversive Journeys Around Vermont. This is by Helen Husher. I grew up in Vermont, so I particularly love this book. It had a lot of places, some of which I hadn't heard of, some of which I had heard of, but I've never been, because when you grow up in Vermont, you don't really tour a lot of places around there because you're not a tourist. But it is a really fun read, and also fun to maybe picture more places you want to go when you can go places again. Let's see. If a feeling that you are experiencing is terror or panic, which I'm sure is what a lot of us are feeling at many different points in the day, or if you're lucky, maybe only every other couple of days, might want some books to help you calm your mind or deal with it, or just forget about it for a while. For something like that, I would suggest Jenny Lawson's memoirs, either Let's Pretend This Never Happened or Furiously Happy. Jenny Lawson is absolutely hilarious, and she has done a wonderful job of taking the sometimes dark or scary parts of yourselves and your life and somehow managing to make them absolutely hilarious. So I would suggest both or either of these books to maybe kind of help you chill out or try to look on the bright side of things, I suppose. If you are looking for something also funny to try to take your mind off things, I would definitely suggest any of Douglas Adams' books, most especially Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because it is laugh out fucking loud funny. So just enjoy it. If, however, your terror is more consuming your every part of your being, I can suggest a book that my therapist actually suggested to me right before all of this happened, and that is Mindfulness. It is Ancient Wisdom Meets Modern Psychology. This is by Christina Feldman and William Kukian. I'm so sorry, I mispronounced that. This is a book that focuses on using the ancient kind of mindfulness and meditation and those techniques, and trying to put them to help with anxiety or depression and issues like that. It's trying to help maybe calm you down a little bit. So I'm not too far into this book so far. I'm still making my way through it. But so far, this has helped, or has been helping anyway. So if you would like to try to maybe calm yourself or quiet your mind a little bit, I would definitely suggest this. Also, another feeling, if you have moved past your terror and are into full-blown despair territory, and can't seem to pull yourself out from under your blanket fort, or you're supposed to be working and instead you're staring steadily at the screen and drinking the third cup of coffee today because you don't know what else to do with yourself and everything seems dark and terrible, I have some books for you. You need some comforting reads, I would say. Of those, I would definitely suggest the Harry Potter series, of course. I don't know if this works for everyone. I know that, if it's a series that you've grown up with, it is definitely one to reach for when you need a little extra comforting. Because reading Harry Potter feels like coming home in a sense. Even though things get kind of dark and scary there towards the end, there is also, a light at the end of it. There is a hope at the end of it. And at least the first book in particular is very warm and comforting and exciting. And yeah, if you are just in the pits of despair, this is definitely something that can maybe help that a little bit. Other than that, I would also suggest reading the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. This is the first book in the series, The Color of Magic. Terry Pratchett has a complicated world that he created, ever changing, I guess, throughout the volumes, but the books are really, truly very funny. So if you need some extra laughs right now, I would definitely suggest the Discworld series. I think you can pretty much start anywhere. This is the first book. This is a good place to start. I also started way somewhere in the middle with the Tiffany Aching series, which is an offshoot of this, which is also really funny. So I would suggest any of his books. I would also suggest this particular book, and I know it's a little bit out of season for it, but it is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. What is something that's comforting for a lot of people? Usually the holiday season. I know that's not true for everyone. I know that sometimes the holidays can be a particularly hard time of year, but if you are someone who finds Christmas or the holiday season to be comforting, this would probably help. And even if it's not related to the holiday itself, this book is just a very hopeful read, because it's about a man who has, in a sense, fucked up his life and made lots of mistakes, but the thing is, you can always try to fix things. You can change yourself to become a better person, even when the world looks particularly dark. Compassion and generosity is something that can change the world. So yeah, that's a good read for that. If you are dealing with a lot of loneliness, you're missing your friends, your family, you're missing having any person to talk to in person, really, especially if you're on your own, or if you're just stuck with maybe your significant other or a roommate or something, you're just really feeling it. You're missing having other people around. I have a couple of books for you. First up, I would suggest another childhood comfort read, of mine anyway, is the Bunnicula series by Deborah and James Howe. This is the first book in the series. There is a colorful and warm cast of characters, mostly animal, in this series, and it is laugh out loud funny. And also wonderful cast of characters that are like wonderful book friends you can visit would also be in The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin and the Percy Jackson series by Ransom Riggs. This is of course the first book, The Lightning Thief. There are such wonderful families and friends and relationship connections throughout these books, that if you're feeling kind of lonely and whatnot, it's a great time to visit these fictional friends. And lastly, if you have somehow managed to get to a place where you are appreciating the solitude or the calm and quiet of a morning because you woke up after having, nightmares or stress dreams, or you just couldn't sleep anymore, and you get to that point where you wake up in the morning and make yourself a cup of coffee, and somehow the sun rose anyway, and the birds are chirping, and everything is still and peaceful, and you find yourself beginning to appreciate that and be thankful for at least, outside the world is still happening, and we can find these pockets of peace and try to enjoy them. If you are basically getting to that point, I would suggest trying out some poetry, most especially anything by Billy Collins. This one is The Rain in Portugal, which is a really nice collection. Billy Collins is always a treat with his observances on life and relationships, and the humor throughout as well is also really nice. So it's a very cozy read. I read this entire collection one afternoon sitting on the couch while jazz played in the background because I'm that kind of person. But it's a very nice kind of chill thing to read if you're trying to get to a point of appreciating this time of just taking a second to relax. Other things I would suggest would be maybe doing some reading into mythology or legends or fairy tales. Greek mythology is pretty interesting. If you are not interested in this, or maybe this is something that, has never really piqued your interest, you can't really go wrong with fairy tales. Most of us know probably the majority of them, but there's always new ones to discover, and sometimes, depending on the translations, they can be pretty hilarious, or it just does not sound like great messages perhaps to give other people, but at the same time they're interesting reads, and also another thing to be comforting in a sense if you come across one that is a particular favorite of yours. So those are some books that, if you are going through any of that kind of wheel of emotions, maybe those can help you, perhaps. I know that I have already reached for some of them and will probably be reaching for more of them as time goes on in this, whole situation. So I hope that helps, guys, even just a little bit. Hope that you are well, and that this is over soon, but not too soon. Over right when it needs to be, I guess. The correct. That we're all okay. How about we'll leave it at that. So signing off here. I have a lot more reading to do. Bye.